Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Skokie Village Board for July 5th, 2022. The mayor is absent tonight, but will return to his office next week. He will appear tonight by way of Zoom, but for the smooth transaction of village business tonight, a mayor pro temp will be appointed to conduct the meeting. Pursuant to the section 2-84 of the village code, in the event of a temporary absence of the mayor, the board of trustees shall elect one of its members to fulfill the mayor's duties. At this time, I make a motion to appoint Ralph Klein to be Mayor Pro Temp for the duration of this meeting of July 5th, 2022. Do I have a second? Thank you. Now I'll call the roll call. Trustee Sutkar?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
Aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin?
Aye.
Trustee Klein?
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye.
Oh. All right, so motion carries.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I'd like to ask for a motion to permit Mayor Van Dusen and Trustee Sutker to participate in tonight's meeting electronically as pursuant to Skokie's Code Chapter Section 2.07 due to illness concerns. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Trustee Slovin, second. Trustee Kuhn. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Trustee Sutkar?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
Aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin?
Aye.
Trustee Klein?
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye.
The motion passes. At this time, I would like to invite everybody to stand and as our clerk leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I call this meeting to order, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Sutkar?
Here.
Trustee Robinson?
Here.
Trustee Kuhn?
Here.
Trustee Johnson?
Here.
Trustee Pure Slovin?
Here.
Trustee Klein?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Here.
No. Okay. We have a quorum. It is now, I would like to call on Mayor Van Dusen to give us a little reflection regarding what happened yesterday to our neighbors in Highland Park. Your Honor?
Thank you. I very much appreciate the opportunity to reflect on yesterday. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you this evening. Yesterday was a 4th of July that none of us will soon, if ever, forget. I know that the entire Skokie community joins me today in sending our deepest condolences to our neighbors in Highland Park. While so many of us were busy preparing for the return of Skokie's beloved 4th of July parade, it's hard to even imagine the tragic events that unfolded just a few miles north of us. In honor of the victims of that horrific tragedy, I would like to ask for a moment of silence as we remember our neighbors to the north. I would like to thank the Skokie 4th of July Parade Committee and the Skokie Park District for their appropriate decisions to cancel the parade and fireworks, with both the shooter remaining at large until early evening and the difficulty celebrating in light of the day's horrific circumstances. I'm proud to let you know that members of the Skokie Police Department, including Police Chief Brian Baker and Deputy Chief Jesse Barnes, as well as members of the Skokie Fire Department, assisted their colleagues in Highland Park and Lake County with the incident response and ensuing investigation. It's times like these when we must draw together as a community and region to protect each other and to help each other through these difficult times. Skokie did just that yesterday. Please keep the Highland Park community close to your heart as we join them in grieving over the death and trauma of yesterday. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Your Honor. This time, Trustee Robinson, would you like to say a few words, sir?
I would. I just felt compelled to write a few things down to say about yesterday. So I left home with my two daughters to participate in the Skokie parade. While we were waiting instructions on how to celebrate, on the back of a 70-year-old fire truck, the mayor stepped away to hear the news about the tragedy in Highland Park. We were awestruck. Trustees Pure Slovan, Sucker, Klein, and I, and Kuhn listened and were saddened with the latest turn of events. So the decision to cancel the parade out of an abundance of caution was definitely the right call. Thanks to all those who helped make that decision and communicate the updates to our community. Thanks to all the emergency response personnel and our own Skokie staff who assisted Highland Park yesterday. My heart is terribly sad to the families and the community of Highland Park, who will forever have this tragic memory on what should have been a celebratory day. This one hits close to home, and I pray that we continue to hold each other up as neighbors, friends, and community. So as a leader, an educator, and elected official, I've been really trying to think of words of hope to heal and encouragement for today, but it's not going to happen. I will instead be a neighbor, a friend, to listen, share feelings, and dream about a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Is there anything that anybody wants removed from the consent agenda? Trustee Johnson.
I just want to remove 11A, the zoning map amendment.
Just 11A.
Just 11A. And I have no further comments or questions on this item. I just wanted to maintain my vote from the first reading.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? If not, Chair will entertain a motion. Trustee Slovan, seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Sir, would you take the roll, please?
Sure. Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovan,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Aye. And the mayor? No? Okay. The motion is passed. All right, next item on our agenda is the village manager's report. Mr. Lockerbie.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Village Board. Good evening, everyone. Item A is regarding the Commercial Corridor Storefront Enhancement Program proposed modifications. In 2016, the village created the Commercial Corridor Storefront Enhancement Program, commonly referred to as SEP, which is funded by the Economic Development Fund. The program is designed to spur redevelopment, fill vacant commercial spaces, and enhance properties along primary commercial corridors located outside of TIF districts to facilitate reinvestment in these important areas. I am pleased the village has assisted 25 small businesses with this program to date. To make this program a more viable option for property and business owners faced with inflation, higher construction costs, and supply chain issues while seeking to improve key sites in need of more significant reinvestment throughout the village, Community and Economic Development staff recommend the following modifications to the current storefront enhancement program guidelines. 1. Exterior and/or interior improvement assistance shall be increased from $25,000 to $30,000 max. If the applicant chooses to apply for both interior and exterior assistance, combined maximum amount shall be $50,000. This is up from $40,000. 2. Architectural design fees of up to $3,500. This is up from $3,000 for reimbursement in excess of the interior and/or exterior grant totals. 3. If the applicant is the owner or tenant of a building with at least 2 facades visible from the street, an additional $30,000 of exterior assistance. Therefore, the combined maximum amount for the above described properties shall be $80,000. 4. Similar to the downtown and West Dempster TIF district, available incentives. Commercial brokers involved in the sale, purchase, or lease of downtown Skokie commercial properties only that have applied for and received the storefront enhancement program funds shall be eligible to receive a $2,500 broker's bonus commission. Leslie Murphy, our Economic Development Coordinator, is the lead on this program. I concur with staff's recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and Board approval of the above modifications to the Village of Skokie Commercial Corridor Storefront Enhancement Program.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please? Trustee Johnson, I have a second, please. Trustee Pure-Slovan. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding this? Trustee Kuhn, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I had a quick question as far as, do we anticipate additional adjustments in the future as we look at inflation?
Leslie Murphy?
Where's the microphone?
Just to the right there.
Trustee Kemp, was the question related to the
increases.
rationale for the
Yeah.
increases? Yes.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
whether-
we actually had been talking about doing this before COVID because we started the program in 2016, and we knew that with the cost of construction supplies and just the overall supply chain and what have you, that we needed to increase the amount because the amounts that were being submitted to us were already out of whack with what we had been doing, 5 years ago. So yes, inflation did factor into this.
I'm just curious about the interval, like would this be something that we would potentially monitor and review annually if we're looking at inflation rate changes?
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to figure out the frequency, if we were to review this in the future, do we potentially see that as an annual review so that we can make for adjustments? I'm just trying to understand the gap in that 6 years versus just being proactive, looking forward when we might anticipate additional changes.
I agree with you that I think it does deserve an annual review of how the program is working to leverage the private investment that we're looking for. And we'll be looking at a lot of different factors. Unfortunately, some of the projects right now that we are hoping will tap into this program are being held up because of sales of properties that aren't occurring now because of interest rates and what have you. So a lot of it is cyclical. The last one we brought before you was Mrs. K's Kitchen, which was in the downtown, and that was a leasing situation. Many of the ones that we're looking at right now are going to involve a purchase of a property and then renovation on the inside, and sometimes these are two-faced buildings. That's the other reason why we decided to increase it. But we do look at it annually. Sometimes we only have a couple of applications that are brought to fruition. So, but we do have a number of people interested in this. Everything has to come together in order for the project. This is kind of the last piece that makes the project work. It's not usually the first thing, so they have to have their own private investment. They have to have the lease in place. They have to have the building under their own control, and then we can fill that remaining gap to make the project complete. So, but we are planning to bring a couple in the next couple of months to you.
Okay,
And,
great,
and
thank
just to
you.
elaborate a little bit on the foreseeable increment of when we review the inflationary increases, you know, the program is 6 years old, and so we'll continue to monitor the program on a regular basis, on an annual basis, but I don't anticipate making, you know, adjustments, inflationary adjustments every year. I think it'll be less frequent than that.
Okay, it just happens to make sense because of all the different factors coming in together
Mhm.
this year.
This time, right.
Okay,
Mhm.
right,
Trustee Sutton.
The more we use it, the more we'll have things to review, so.
thank you.
Trustee Sutker.
I was just going to ask if you could please speak into the microphone because it's hard for me to hear.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay, sorry.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
She was up there.
It wasn't you, Leslie, it's the people at the,
We'll try our best.
thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify on the storefront enhancement program? If not, Chair will entertain a motion on this. May I have a motion? Trustee Johnson, seconded by, somebody give me a sec. Trustee Setker. Mr. Shaw, would you take the roll, please, sir?
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
I also vote aye. Motion
Thank
is
you.
granted.
Item B,
I'm sorry.
Item B is regarding the Village of Skokie Green Alley Program. Alliance Contractors out of Woodstock, Illinois, for the amount of $750,909.55. The village plans to utilize grant funds from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, along with village funds for construction of identified permeable alleys. This item is back before the board because the previous bidders did not meet the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District grant requirements as it pertains to affirmative action. In the past, bidders were able to prove they had made a good faith effort to achieve these requirements, but that accommodation was not acceptable in this situation. The 3 alleys to be constructed currently are either paved with ongoing drainage issues or have an aggregate surface that requires extensive maintenance from Public Works. The alleys are the 9100 block of Forest View and Ewing, the 8800 block of Lincolnwood and Central Park, and the 8500 block of Christiana and McCormick. There are sustainability benefits of these green alleys. First, they capture and contain stormwater and return it to the water table versus conveying it to the sewer system or to overland runoff in the backyards. Cumulatively, the stone base of all 3 proposed alleys will provide almost 70,000 gallons of stormwater storage each time it rains. Second, a green alley has a longer lifespan and requires less annual maintenance than a gravel alley, which reduces greenhouse gases. Russ Rietfeld, our engineering director, is the lead staff person on this initiative. 2 bids were received, and it is recommended the village utilize the services of Alliance Contractors, a firm the village has worked with in the past with satisfactory results. I concur with staff's recommendation and respectfully request mayor and board approval to enter into a contract with Alliance Contractors in the amount not to exceed $750,909.55.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please? Trustee Johnson, seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Does anybody have any questions or something they want to speak about with the green alleys? Anybody out there would wish to speak about the green alleys? Not? Mr. Shaw, do your thing, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
I also vote aye. The motion is passed.
Item C is regarding an amendment to the garage sale ordinance. According to Skokie Village Code, garage sales are defined as being patio sales, basement sales, backyard sales, or any similar type sale of 3 or more household items. The current ordinance states that every owner of a dwelling may not have more than 1 garage sale in a given year, and that the garage sale may not exceed more than 3 consecutive days. Staff is recommending the following changes to the garage sale ordinance. Increase the number of garage sales allowed each year from 1 to 3. Decrease the permit fee for each garage sale from $10 to $5. Allow a maximum of 2 signs advising of the sale in the public right-of-way, currently none, are allowed in the right-of-way. Permit the village manager to establish one weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, each year as a community-wide garage sale, in addition to the 3 allotted garage sales. These changes further the village's sustainability efforts by increasing the opportunities for unwanted items to be reused. In addition, effective with these changes and permitting process will be available online. Thus, individuals will have the choice of being able to come in person and apply for a permit or complete that transaction online. Alex Franz, our management analyst, is the lead on this initiative as well, and he has worked with our code committee, which makes up all of the village departments. I concur with staff's recommendation and respectfully request mayor and board approval to authorize Corporation Council to draft the necessary ordinance for final reading and adoption.
Thank you. Once again, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Robinson, seconded by trustee Kuhn. Any questions or testimony regarding? Trustee Johnson.
Thank you to you and the code committee for coming up with these recommendations. These are, I think, real improvements. The only thing I wanted to ask kind of for the board's perspective on was the fee. In what you presented on the agenda, there's a great table kind of comparing us to our 16 comparable communities. Only 6 of our 16 comparable communities require a permit for garage sales, and only 4 out of 16 require a fee. And I'm kind of wondering if there's value in keeping the fee. I appreciate the reduction, and I'm kind of wondering, yeah.
So the fee was implemented around 2004, and it was or maybe it was modified in 2004, increased to the $10 after an analysis was done of how much staff time is involved in issuing a permit, monitoring the permit, and just regulating the activity. And so it's been in place for a number of years, and when we were doing this comprehensive review of the program, the thought was that perhaps $10 is just too much for a garage sale permit. But at the same time, the village has a philosophy that if there are services above and beyond the normal level of service, that the fee should be in line with the time and the expenses associated with it. So what you have before you this evening is kind of a compromise of all of those items. We do think that the changes that are being recommended this evening do need a chance to be implemented and to evaluate and see how they roll out. We do have history back in 2004, 2005, when there were lots of signs that were being left out in the parkways. And, one year there was over 700 signs that were picked up by village staff. And so as we roll into these new changes, if they're approved this evening, I do think there is value in maintaining a fee in order for the residents to take the permitting process serious, which is what we need in order to ensure that there's not more than 3 garage sales at a certain address, but also to be kind of an opportunity to revise the fee. And so, Alex, I don't know if you have more to add, but I think you were interested in hearing from the board members as well, but there's a little bit of background information.
No, nothing more to add. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson? Is there more?
Do other members of the board have any interest in considering eliminating this fee? Oh, actually, I should ask you, John. Can you tell us about just kind of the numbers of how many permits we usually get a year and like the kind of revenue that the village is receiving from this fee?
Sure. It's approximately 250 permits a year, and it's about $2,500 a year in permit fees currently. And Alex, is my recollection correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
If the revenue that the village is receiving is is pretty minimal, only maybe $2,000 or $3,000 a year, is there any interest from the board in maybe eliminating this fee?
I only like the fee because it gives it a value. It doesn't have to be, it's not a pocketbook buster, but the permit does have some value. You have to pay something for it. You have to pick up your signs afterwards. So that's the only way I look at it. I don't want to break the bank of somebody, but it still has to have a value to me. Trustee Pierce-Lovan.
What happens if people don't pick up their signs? I mean, you know who the garage sale is, of course, because the address is on there. Do we then knock on their door and tell them that they're in violation? Is there any ramifications? Sorry if you couldn't hear me, Edie Sue, sorry.
First, there'd be an education side of things, informing them that they were incorrect. If the violation were to continue, there's a $50 to $750 fine, depending on the number and consistency of the violations.
May I continue?
Please.
So, thank you, trustee Johnson. This is really awkward,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Trustee Johnson, thank you. I don't disagree with reducing it to zero. However, I think that if there is this minimal fee and it makes you think about that you have to go in and get your permit and sign up, et cetera, hopefully it will put in the minds of people that this is a serious permit, and it will stop them from getting a citation, which would be much more expensive. So for that reason, I would agree with reducing it to $5, but don't think that we need to drop it lower than that, because you're right, the revenue is irrelevant. I think it's more of a stamp of saying, this is serious, this is a permit, and you've got a responsibility to it.
That's fair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Anybody else have anything? Would you go to the podium, please? Can you tell us your name?
I will just add, I really appreciate that we're kind of moving the application online. I think that'll be really helpful as well.
My name is Lauren Grodnicki, and I just had some more questions because apparently we owe the village $10. I didn't know that there was a permit that I had to apply for in order to have a garage sale. So I guess my question is, how many of these signs are you finding from people who didn't even have a permit because they didn't know that this was a thing?
As of right now, minimal, but between 25 to 50 a year.
And is there any consequence for you finding the signs where the people didn't have a permit?
As of right now, staff have found that the education is enough to reduce it in the future, so no fines have, that I'm aware of, have been given for garage sales.
Thank you.
Lauren? Chief Baker's in the back, so I'd be careful.
All right, there's one that was
Anybody else have anything regarding the garage sale permits? If not, Mr. Shaw, will you
Trustee
take the roll,
Sutker?
please? I'm sorry? He's calling. What, yeah?
Aye.
I didn't know.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovan,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Aye. Motion is passed. Alex, thank you so much.
Items D, E, F, and G were approved as part of tonight's consent agenda, and that completes my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lockerbie. And now it's our report of our Corporation Counsel, Michael Lorch. Mr. Lorch.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees. Good evening, everyone else. Items 11B, 11C, 11D, and 11E were part of the consent agenda at the beginning of this evening's meeting and were adopted at that time. Item 11A is an ordinance amending the zoning map with regard to the properties located at 5149, 5153, and 5157 Jarlath Avenue, Skokie, Illinois, from an R2 single-family district to a B2 commercial district pursuant to Plan Commission Case 2022-08P. This is the second reading for this item, and I would request board action on it this evening.
Thank you, sir. May I have a motion, please, to accept item 11A on our consent agenda? Motion, please. Trustee Robinson, seconded by trustee Kuhn. Anybody wish to testify or state your position? You want to say anything else?
No, I have no further comments or questions about the case. I just wanted
Just what's on the record.
just wanted to keep my vote, yep.
Okay, thank you. Anybody wish to say anything, speak on this subject? If not, take the roll, please, sir.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Nay?
Trustee Pure Slovan,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
I also vote aye. Motion is passed.
That will conclude my report for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lorch. The last item on our agenda is citizen comments. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Can I say something during new business?
Sure.
So during the new business section of our agenda, if there is interest from the board I would really like to suggest a discussion under new business at our next meeting on July 18th concerning the various proposals for referendums for the November ballot in Skokie. At our last meeting, we kind of found ourselves in a pretty unique and kind of complicated situation. To my knowledge, it's very rare to have a ballot referendum question on a Village of Skokie ballot at all. It hasn't happened, I think, in at least a decade, but there have now been at least 6 different proposed questions for the 3 spots for referendum on our November ballot. And a question can get on the ballot by only 2 ways, either by a citizen petition or by a resolution of our board, which is what we considered doing at our last meeting and is something I'm open to considering again. There are at least 6 different questions that have been proposed for this ballot. There are 3 petitions being circulated in the community for binding referendum questions related to electoral reform and our village elections. One is about nonpartisan elections, one is about staggered terms, and one is about hybrid representation, which would mean kind of combining at-large and district-based trustees. And at our last meeting, there were also 3 proposals for advisory referendum questions related to environmental sustainability. One was about our second weekly garbage pickup, one was about plastic bags, and one was about gas-powered leaf blowers. So there have been 6 total questions already written that we have been asked to consider, even though we've yet to kind of discuss any of them publicly as a board. So the deadline for referendums for November is August 8th. So we have 2 more village board meetings to consider whether the board wants to proceed with resolutions in support of any of these questions. So I'm kind of suggesting if there's interest, we could easily discuss any of these questions at our next meeting on July 18th. And then if there was support for proceeding with any of those resolutions for referendum, we could do that at our August 1st meeting.
Well, would you like legal to, Mr. Lorch's department to have something drawn up that that he can talk about?
Well, before requesting that from a corporation counsel, I was kind of going to ask the board if out of these 6 referendum questions, are there any, I guess before asking, for something for all of them, are there any of these 6 questions that members of the board would like to consider and discuss at our next meeting on July 18th?
May I?
Please.
So for clarification, you are asking if we would be interested in flushing out any of the resolutions?
Correct.
And are you asking which of the 6 today we would be interested in flushing out?
If there are any. I know we have time before the next meeting if there were perhaps other suggestions, but
Thank you for the clarification.
yeah.
Anybody have anything they wish to respond? Trustee Kuhn?
I personally don't have any interest in it, considering that the last meeting, the resolution was pulled because it was controversial, and any initiative that we put at this forth would be seen in direct opposition to the citizen-led initiative, so I would decline from it.
Okay.
I, on the other hand, am very passionate about keeping the second garbage pickup. I've done a lot of research with our Public Works Department. I have talked to people. I have talked to Trustee Kuhn. I've even talked to you, sir, about it. And in my one-man show here, I am very much in favor of keeping it. And if it takes a referendum motion, yes, I would. I would like to. I mean, that answers your question. Because everybody that I talk to wants to keep it, and I'm saying 99 out of 100. And Trustee Kuhn said similar numbers, and you even told me about 50-50. So it is a very popular thing to have. And it's something I would not arbitrarily want to take away from our residents. So I'd like to hear from them, especially with the citizen survey showing that 85% want it. Don't say they all need it, but they want it. And our job is to give people what they want. So anything else? And by the way, the mayor's chair squeaks, I apologize. Please, buy some oil. Anything else, Mr. Johnson? Oh, Trustee Robinson, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would just say I'd be open to discussing and listening and learning more.
Okay.
And,
good to know, but.
and I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was out of order. And understanding that it's a question of fleshing out the ideas and giving us an opportunity to consider some of these amendments, I would also be interested. I have no objection.
And I would also say that talking to the mayor as soon as he's better and talking to our corporation counsel is the right avenue to go and to see this forward. I mean, this is the avenue that I've taken. I met with the mayor and discussed my preferences with him. I met with council too. And if you haven't, I'd encourage you to do the same thing before the next meeting. Okay? Anybody have anything else?
When you had said to maybe direct something towards our corporation counsel, what did you mean something specifically?
I meant,
Oh, yeah.
he's our lawyer. His legal departments are binding on this board.
Oh,
So that's why I say when you need a legal opinion, you go to the lawyer. So no matter, even if he's wrong, his legal opinions are binding on us.
Would it, instead of maybe selecting one or two, would it be possible to have an open discussion of all six?
I would say that's, we'd talk with the mayor.
Okay.
And see if he can get on his agenda.
Cool.
I'm only pro tem.
All right.
So,
Sounds
this
good.
chair's driving me nuts. Okay, now it is citizen comment time. Would anybody like to address the board? Please, sir. I'm going to ask you for your name, please.
Thank you for the chance to have the feedback here. My name is Burton, and I live in the 4800 block of Howard Street, just off Lincoln, Skokie. In light of what happened yesterday, this might seem trivial, but it's important to me. The first
And it's
issue.
important to us.
The first issue is recycling, and I'm wondering if trustees, Mayor Van Dusen, are aware of the fact recycling is not working, certainly not for me, and in talking to people in Public Works Department, there have been several complaints about it. I understand it was a change in the company that's doing the recycling to Lakeshore, but they're dropping the ball, and it's not working, at least for me. Where I have to complain about a Friday delivery not being made several times in the last few months. And then it's just wondering if the trustees feel this, or am I just imagining it? Because if there's a problem with the recycling, then something needs to be done as far as reevaluating what kind of a contract that the village has with Lakeshore.
Okay, Mr. Lackaby, can you help us with this problem?
Sure. Mr. Burton, thank you for the feedback. We have been, unfortunately, needing to meet with Lakeshore on a regular basis because they are having staffing issues over the last few months, and so they are not able to staff their routes like they have in the past. And so we have been working diligently in order to improve the service. And so we share your frustration, but it's not an easy fix, unfortunately, in this current environment for staffing. And so our contract with Lakeshore is up in the coming year, and so we do have leverage in order to make a change or to, or to ensure that we have satisfactory service going forward. But on a regular basis, over the last 6 to 8 weeks, we have been working with Lakeshore in order to improve the situation.
Thank you for that. The second issue is, if you're familiar with that area of Lincoln and Howard, Howard and Skokie Boulevard, Lincoln and Skokie Boulevard, it's like living in the middle of downtown Chicago with the traffic and all. We chose to live there, but I'm saying that the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit that's posted on Howard just off of Lincoln is a joke. Nobody's going 30 or even 40 miles an hour, especially during rush hour. And we feel it because we live there. It's not trivial to the people who live there. I just happen to be here tonight voicing my concerns. But something needs to be done, whether that 30 mile per hour needs to be changed. I've talked to the engineering people, I've talked to the police about it, and all they can say is we can't do anything. Our hands are tied. Well, that's not cutting it as far as I'm concerned. There needs to be a reevaluation of the noise factor there. I'm talking about these hot rods going by. They think they're at the Indianapolis 500. It's not a joke. It needs to be changed, and the police can't do anything. I don't blame them. What are they going to do? Have a cop car there 24/7? No, that's not practical. But the noise level is day and night, 24/7. There's no vacation from it. I think something needs to be done. I'm tired of living like I'm in the downtown Chicago area, and I'm not talking about being shot either. There's constant sound of fireworks, but they're not fireworks. They're from these hot rods going by, and nothing seems to be done about it, and that's all I want to say.
Okay, wait, one thing though. What street are you talking? Are you talking about Howard, Lincoln, or Skokie
That
Boulevard?
whole area there, you know, God bless them, the fire trucks, ambulance people, the first responders, we're used to that, and they're on their way, and they have to go, the noise level there is acceptable because obviously they're responding to some kind of a crisis. But I'm talking about these hot rods who think they're at the Indy 500, and they're not. And they make that turn off of Lincoln onto Howard, and, you know, it's like a war zone. And I'm sick and tired of it.
Mr. Lackerby?
I had the same question, just to try to understand precisely what street has the most issues, but this is a frustrating issue for us because we have to be present when the hot rod or the loud muffler goes by, and so it's very difficult for us to patrol all 150 miles of street in town. But let me revisit it with the engineering department and the police department, and we'll see what we can do. We appreciate your feedback.
Is there something that can be done about that ridiculous speed limit of 30? Nobody goes 30. Nobody goes 40 around there, especially during rush hour.
We'll evaluate it from an enforcement perspective as well as the posted speed limit from an engineering perspective.
Appreciate that. I've been told by Russ in the engineering department that some kind of analysis needs to be done. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the analysis could take, what, a couple of years?
No, well, the issue is what is the appropriate speed for the roadway? And so if the roadway can handle a certain speed limit, but it's posted differently, then it's not necessarily the safest environment. So there's a lot of factors that the traffic engineer, there's a lot of expertise that goes into establishing the appropriate speed limit. So let us take a look at it. It'll give us a few weeks. It won't take us a few years.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Anybody else like to address the board? Ma'am? Can you tell us your name, please?
My name is Margaret Veit Clark, and I live at 7907 North Tripp in Skokie. I'm here because in the wake of the Highland Park tragedy this week. Many of us are asking ourselves what more I can do to prevent such tragedies from happening again. I'm not here to scold or inflict guilt tonight on anybody, but to remind you, our public officials, and all of us in this room, that each of us has a tremendous amount of personal power in our professional and personal lives. Maybe I'll take this off to make it easier for everyone to understand. And sometimes we have more power than we often realize, that we can use for good or not, and that failing to take action is often, I believe, our greatest failing as human beings. So on behalf of our community, I ask you to think seriously about what role you could play as our elected leaders to be proactive and collaborative in the effort to prevent gun violence. I'm not an expert, but I do know there are dozens of things that we could do immediately, and I'd like to highlight two very basic local efforts that are completely within our control, and then pose some questions about broader efforts. And I know there are other people in the room who will also elaborate on this, I'm sure. Under the heading of local, the first thing I would ask you to do is to educate yourselves about the latest Illinois legislation around gun laws by inviting a member of an advocacy group like People for a Safer Society to update you on the issues that are happening. Illinois has passed some historic measures this past couple of years, but some of these new laws are only valuable if community members know how to use them. One example of this is the Illinois Firearms Restraining Order, also known as a red flag law, that allows family members, household members, and law enforcement to obtain a court order to remove a gun and ammunition from the possession of one who poses a threat to themselves or others. The more community members know and understand about this tool, the greater the chance they'll use it to save lives. But there needs to be a shared effort by all community leaders to get this information into our hands. We all learned where to get COVID tested and vaccinated, and we can learn how to do this too. But the information needs to get out there. Secondly, we need to promote education around safe storage of guns, especially to families with children. Many park districts and school boards in Illinois don't feel it's their place to talk about gun safety to families. But a new law in Illinois frees up school boards to do just that by allowing the school boards to include information in their student handbooks about safe storage. Could you use your collaborative relationships with Skokie schools and lend your voices to see that this happens? And where else could this information about safe storage, but also about the Firearms Restraining Order, be published and shared through Skokie's communication network channels, or through the police department, or through any other community partners? I would hope you'd see this as your job, as much your job as ours. Speaking about broader efforts, my memory was refreshed this week in reading about Skokie and Highland Park's assault weapon ban that's been on the books for almost 10 years now. And yet I was upset to discover while searching the internet yesterday that a class promoting assault weapons is being offered in Lincolnwood on July 16th at McCormick and Devon at 3360 Devon at Shore Galleries, right next to my favorite restaurant, one of my favorite restaurants, Libanese. The marketing material for the class states, quote, "With the massive popularity of America's rifle, the AR-15 is quickly becoming the choice for self-defense in the home." Such discrepancies between Skokie's ban and Lincolnwood's practices means that to begin to address this complex issue, we need to have partners in cities and villages across the state and throughout the Midwest region. Could you, Mayor, use your voice at the Northwest Municipal Conference to pass a resolution asking Governor Pritzker to issue a statewide ban on assault-style weapons and large-capacity magazines? Could you ask for a resolution to raise the age of possession of rifles and long guns to 21 years? Could you require mandatory fingerprinting on all gun sales and in-person background checks at police departments? Could the Skokie Police Chief Baker advocate for this to the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police as well? Could you work to form a commission on the interstate and intrastate trafficking of firearms? Some of this is outlined in House Bill 5535. It's easy in the face of evil so large and a gun debate that is often ugly and divisive to feel that anything you do won't matter. It's true that gun violence is tangled up with so many dark aspects of our culture, but we must begin somewhere. And just as we've all come together to fight the COVID pandemic, we must be all in to fight this public health epidemic too. I hope we can all step up and do just that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Mr. Lorch.
Ms. Clark, your comments are deeply appreciated by this board, and I know you all know the history of track record of this board in trying to be at the forefront of many efforts to respond to gun violence and the perpetration of the sale of such weapons. And what I'm going to add now is not meant to disagree or to blunt what you've said, and all of which is items which I'm sure the mayor is going to want to look into. But it does give me an opportunity to remind all of us of some of the very forward-thinking things that have been done by this village board in recent time. So if you just allow me, let me just mention a few. And again, it's not...
With all respect, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be fair first to let other people speak and
He
give
was
comments?
answering what you
Let
brought
me
up.
Okay,
just
'cause-
mention a few items. It's not to blunt or to distract, but I think when we have a public dialogue, it's important to also hear what has been done, and actually then it dovetails with your overall message, which is, if we have these things on the books, how do we get the public to know and understand and use them? And you'll see what I mean in a moment. I think everyone knows that the village was amongst the very, very first to pass a ban on assault weapons. But when we did it, we also did it with a ban on large magazines, and we clearly got involved in defining that.
What year was that in?
Oh, that was several years ago when the state legislature gave us permission to do it.
Okay.
The other item in particular that I would agree with you is not well known enough, and public education would help, but we all have to be aware of, is that this village passed an ordinance which permits the police to remove a weapon if they are responding to a call of domestic violence or a call for mental health, and they see a weapon in the room that is not secured. And on one hand, I would say to you, we did that many years ago before it was fashionable to look at that type of red flag kind of response, and yet I would concur with you that not enough people know about it. But this village took action that I think you would be hard pressed to find other municipalities have undertaken. You know our history in regard to responding at the statewide level in amicus briefs to defend, by example, the Deerfield action, and we are amongst very few municipalities in this state who took the time to join in an amicus brief and were successful, including even the city of Chicago that didn't participate. So we have lots more to do, and everything you're pointing out is very helpful, but I think we also have to at least acknowledge some of the forward-thinking actions we have taken. We also were the first municipality, as far as I know, to pass a resolution calling upon the state legislature to require registration of gun sellers in the state of Illinois. And that was early on, and was applauded by several gun safety groups that were looking for that type of collaborative effort to try to influence the state legislature. There are several others, including the fact that we have put restrictions on where guns can be sold, and there are no gun sales in the village for that reason. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done, but I also think it's an opportunity when we take that stock of what more needs to be done to also take a moment to say, okay, we've got some things, we know where the heart of the board is, and now we just have to figure out, as you pointed out, how to make the public more aware of some of these efforts to stop the proliferation in homes.
Well, thank you for reminding us of Skookie's history. I think it'd be important to communicate this to people and to name what are the things that you are going to do going forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Hi, can you tell us your name, please?
Like you don't know my name. I'm Laura Williams. I live at 8135 Lockwood Avenue in Skokie, and I am a resident and a Skokie teacher, and I'm also the president of People for a Safer Society. I don't need to repeat everything that Margaret said. I had no idea that she was going to speak or what she was going to say, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's great. And we're very appreciative of Skokie leading the way in many respects where gun violence prevention is concerned. And I have some very concrete ideas about how information about FRO, the Firearms Restraining Order, and safe gun storage could be shared. You know, I read the emails that we get. We did a great job of sharing information about COVID, but I have not ever seen information disseminated to the public about that FROs exist and how people can get them. The safe gun storage, I know people shy away from such distasteful a discussion, but, you know, all you have to do is look to the north, right? And I heard about yesterday's event because my sister was at the parade and my niece was in the marching band and was one of those kids in blue running. And, you know, I've been involved in this for a while and this hit very close to home. And of course you think, well, so what can we do? Obviously, we're limited in some of the things we can do, but I was happy to see that we're going to have a national night out again. We've missed that. It seems like a great opportunity to share information about FRO to families, because the families who need it are not the ones who are seeking it out, right? You're preaching to the choir. And if I send out an email, the people who are reading it, they already know about it. But how do we reach those families who need to hear that if you have weapons in your home, this is how you have to store them, right? And there are opportunities to get that message out, and it's not as complicated as filing a brief or making a resolution. It's just sharing information. And that's just off the top of my head. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I do hope that the village can take some concrete steps to share this really important information, because even though we don't want to talk to our kids about it, they all know. I mean, if you have kids, they've done lockdown drills. I have a friend who was getting texts yesterday because she's a classroom teacher from somebody who was sheltering in place in Highland Park who wanted to know, you've done this, what should I do? They literally were texting a second grade teacher. So we all know it. And pretending that it's not there doesn't serve anyone. And so I think it would be brave of the village to just disseminate that information. That's what I would ask.
One second.
Yes.
Can she make a submission for the electronic newsletter? You want to?
Sure. There has been at least one article in the past, you know, sharing this information, and so we can review that and revisit it and be sure we're disseminating the information.
That's great, especially because FRO's been updated since that article was shared, so.
But I think you actually helped us with that one article with
I think so.
antennas, so,
Yeah,
right?
but things have changed since then.
It's more than that, once is not enough,
Right.
so we agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Sir?
My name is Brian Clark. I live at 7907 Tripp. My perspective is slightly different than my wife's. I'm a lawyer by training, and so I would offer just one or two comments. To borrow Justice Alito's phrase, there's an opinion that is egregiously wrong, and the opinion is Heller. Let's remember that the Second Amendment, frankly, is a collective right, not an individual right. I would ask that the board consider taking more creative and more aggressive legal action, even than you've done so far. And I agree, Michael, that you've led. But one thing that I think we could learn from our recent legal history is that efforts that are sustained and are urgent and are creative tend to be rewarded. There is nothing about the Heller opinion that we should consider to be permanent. It's an artifact of a particular court in a particular time, and for over 200 years, nobody understood the Second Amendment the way that court does. So that's point one. We should be, because we've led, we should continue to lead and be as aggressive as we can be in the legal front. I think we can take some risk there. We have in the past, and I know we can do it again in the future, which means really stepping out on things like an assault weapons ban. I'm a believer in the aphorism Occam's razor. The reason we have so much gun violence is because we have so many guns. Let's be quite clear about that. Those two go together. We need to get rid of these most offensive, most aggressive weapons as best we can. I would urge Mayor Van Dusen and this board to work with the Northwest Municipal Conference and put together a real collaboration of all the communities in this area. I know you'll run into some difficulties. I recall at around the time we passed the assault weapons ban here in Skokie, that there was a question around how to approach the village of Niles when they considered a gun shop, right? I think, I'll be frank, I think we played small there. We can't play small anymore about this stuff, right? Mayor Watering has led, just as we have in Highland Park, and yet that young man went to Highwood and got 2 assault weapons. That's how this works. None of us can wall ourselves off. We really need to collaborate on the harder stuff. First responders do a great job of collaborating in the event of an incident. Let's get ahead of it and collaborate in advance of them so that we can cut them off. I think that's very important. I guess one other thing I would say, I'm on the board of Turning Point Behavioral Health Center here in Skokie. I think it's hugely important that we take seriously mental health awareness and really devote some sustained attention and funds to it. We often hear, and I frankly think at times it's a dodge by people who would rather not talk about guns as an issue, that if we just devoted a little more attention to mental health, things would be better. You know, we can do 2 things at once, right? I would ask that we continue and strengthen the crisis intervention training that the Skokie Police I know have done some of. I think we could do a lot more of that. I think we ask our police to do way, way too many things. And as we know, mass shootings get our attention. That's why we're here tonight. But in the end, most of the killing and most of the violence occurs in a domestic violence situation or in acquaintance violence. And, you know, we had 7 people lost in Highland Park, and on the back page of the Tribune, 3 more were killed in Chicago. You know, these numbers have become meaningless to us unless they're spectacular. We can't let that happen. We have to ask our police to be able to work with social workers and trained professionals to help solve these mental health crises. It's unfair to police to ask them to do all this. We ask way too much of them already. I would encourage us to be much more dynamic and much more comprehensive about mental health awareness. Thank you.
Mr. Heller, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Mr. Clark, I don't know what the Heller opinion is.
The Heller opinion was the 2008 Supreme Court opinion written by Justice Scalia that essentially changed the constitutional law for the Second Amendment, saying that the Second Amendment, there's the first clause of the Second Amendment talks about a well-regulated militia. And when I was in law school and when Mr. Lorge was in law school, we hardly got it taught because there was like 1 or 2 cases in 200 years. Why? Because everyone understood it meant militias at the time of the Revolutionary War. He read that out of the amendment and essentially said everyone has an individual right to bear arms without regard to whether they're part of the National Guard or something like that. It has changed the law dramatically. We now have more guns than we have people in this country, even though less than a third of us own a gun at all. That's not an acceptable situation. You know, the right to bear arms goes along with the right not to bear arms and the right to feel safe and free in your own hometown going to a parade. We need to work on this. This has to be urgent.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Mr. Clark. Hello.
Good day. I'm Barry Purcell. I live on 7924 Trip in Skokie. Brian and Margaret have made excellent points on the issues at hand. And I'd like to focus on just 2 smaller really small points within that scope. The first one is assault weapons. And in my opinion, the business end of the danger is the combination of a detachable magazine in any semi-automatic rifle and the extended capacity magazines. Calling it assault rifle because it's got metal and not wooden stock, who cares? What you care is the business end, the way that the bullets are ordinarily gone through the detachable magazine and the size of the magazine. So unfortunately, if you're going to control stuff, you have to operate from that point of view. Now, the second thing came up in numerous press conferences that have gone on the last 36 hours. You've noticed that this demented individual had an interaction with Highland Park Police where they took away his knives and they wrote a letter to the Illinois State Police indicating that he was unbalanced. The Illinois State Police reviewed his situation and noticed he had not applied for a Ford card. So from what it appears, from what we heard on the TV, the Illinois State Police dropped the whole issue. So the year after that, in 2020, that happened in 2019, in 2020, he applies for the Ford card. There's no evidence of this past interaction. He gets the Ford card. It would appear, and I would respectfully request to you to make a resolution that there should be a list that the Illinois State Police has of people who should never have a Ford card. And that list should be accessible through the individual police forces in the state. There should be a process by which this person's name gets on the list, and obviously also a process by which the name should be removed if it's a mistake or the mental health of the person changes. That list apparently does not exist, and I think that is catastrophic. Would it be possible for you to create a resolution to the Illinois legislature suggesting that such a list might be a good idea?
I can bring that up to the mayor. It's a very good point. Mr. Lorch.
Well, Mr. Lockby, my
John?
light does not go on.
Oh, my God.
I'll speak aloud. It's just a quick note to add to your frustration. Within the last couple of years, there actually was an increase that we supported to the cost of a FOID card. The suggestion was that that was going to be able to staff up the Illinois State Police to do a better job of tracking those who should not be getting FOID cards. And it's worth our trying to find out what the impact was in terms of staffing and follow-through.
As you probably know, there has been, I'm not sure if there still is, quite a gap when you apply to renew your Ford card. It takes quite a while to the point that your old one's expired. And you have to carry a document with you along with the Ford card indicating that you're still legal even though your card's expired. So clearly there are other places that money is going to have to go before it goes to what I'm suggesting.
We'll speak to the mayor and see if that's something that this board could act on.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the board? Hi.
Hi,
Can you
I'm
tell us your name?
Angela Sunga Gadsden. So I wanted to share a couple of thoughts. I had some other ideas, but to share as well. But you know, I think a lot of people are in agreement that yesterday was terrifying, and with what happened at Highland Park. And I was waiting for. Well, there were lots of things that were happening, and I was actually looking for a statement to come from the village of Skokie, from the mayor's office. I was getting messages from another community nearby, Evanston, and in that message, I know there was a denouncing of the act. I know there was a call for the need for gun reform. I know there was a statement against the rise of white supremacy, the radicalization of young white males into domestic terrorism. And I'm just wondering,
right? Why, when we got, so then, right, so that was like yesterday, right? As I talked with my family about what happened, I also knew someone there at Highland Park, and was very grieved and worried. And also as we continue to hear more of what that violence, that mass shooting really took place. And then we get a message today, right? And I understand, now I'm understanding, I came in a little bit late, so I'm understanding now that the mayor is ill, and I hope he gets better soon, feels better soon. But I'm also like, right, we get a message today, and in that message, there's no denunciation, or there's no commitment to gun reform, there's no denunciation of and we don't know maybe necessarily yet what affiliations. There are some affiliations that are, you know, for what the shooter had. But I'm just wondering when, right, this board, this village, the mayor takes a stance against these and is outright about it. I remember when I was here to report how hate crimes were being treated, right? And I was told that, you know, there's only so much, right? There's a lot of judgment calls. There's only so much, right? There's a lack, you know, I heard there was interpretation and judgment. But I'm looking now and I see a mayor in another town, very clear, and not have, you know, what they can do from a local position. And so what I'm wondering is if, you know, and I was told actually to take it up with state officials, right? So, but I'm seeing local, other communities be very out front with what they will tolerate and what they will not tolerate and what they expect from their community, right? And so I'm hoping that this community, the leaders in this community can denounce, you know, white supremacy, denounce hate crimes, take an active role in that, and really say, you know, have a stance against gun reform policies, right? We heard from Governor Pritzker, right? We've heard from Vice President Kamala Harris, right? And they're out with this. They're very clear on their position with the changes that need to be made. So, you know, the other thing that is troubling too, I'll say two more things, is in that village report, there's also trading cards for Skokie Police Department. What's the sport? How do we explain? When I was growing up, trading cards were baseball players, basketball players.
Is it a bad thing?
So that's what you have to, that's what what do you think?
I don't know what
I'm
you, I
wondering,
don't know what you asked.
why, I just said, what's the purpose? That's the question.
Yes, Chief? Okay. Chief?
So,
Wanna weigh
that's
in?
the other thing, right?
But you want to?
And the last thing I want to say is, right, when you're up there, right, you're not to just represent your own interest, right? You're to represent all of our interests, your community's interests, and that's representative democracy. And that's why I think you all should definitely consider a multi-party system, a representative system, right? Where, because the truth is, at the end of the day, there's no real, you don't necessarily have to like respond, right? Right now, you don't have to respond. You don't have to say that, you know, I hear you, or, and I mean, we get that, I've gotten that before, right? Like, you know, I hear you, right? But what's the commitment? I heard someone ask that earlier. What's the actual, thank you for the history. What's your commitment? Now what do we do? What can we expect, right? So, you know, I'm looking forward to like the leadership here really committing to representing our community's interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Is there anybody else? I hate to ask this, I have to ask it. In your name, ma'am?
My name is State Representative Denise Wangstrom-Back. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Skokie Village Board. I think it's quite clear that we are all grappling with yesterday's tragedy. It's all shaken us to the core, and yesterday was a day that none of us ever wanted to see, and it was horrible to see in a neighboring community like Highland Park. I know that we're all thinking and talking, and we've heard some great commentary about different suggestions about what we can do, what more we can do to prevent tragedies like this from happening. And so I would like to give you an update on what I'm working on. I will share that I am in conversation with leadership and my colleagues to put forward a package of gun safety bills. I'd like to see the following measures statewide: a ban on assault weapons and large capacity magazines, mandatory fingerprinting on all gun sales and in-person background checks at police departments, not gun shops, better collaboration to combat illegal trafficking of firearms, especially between neighboring states such as Indiana, and microstamping on firearms. So, as has been mentioned, we have an assault weapons ban here in Skokie, and we passed that in 2013. I recall that I was right here advocating for it and made it very clear that these weapons were designed for war and to destruct as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. And we saw that vividly yesterday, and we're hearing accounts of what medical doctors saw in the hospitals in the past 24 to 48 hours. So we've seen so many mass shootings this year nationwide. And when we consider that in this particular tragedy, where an assault weapons ban was in place in Highland Park, as is one in Skokie, but the shooter was able to legally purchase his weapon. He lived in a neighboring town just north of Highland Park, and he was able to purchase it legally. It's clear we need a statewide assault weapons ban. We absolutely do. A patchwork is just not working. And so Skokie can, as commented before, has passed its own ordinance, and you can pass more ordinances and improve gun safety laws, but you can also advocate to, as mentioned before, the governor and our federal officials. We must not forget that we need to push them to do the right thing and improve laws. So I'd also like to mention and talk a little bit about one of the laws that was mentioned, also the Firearms Restraining Order law, which is Illinois' red flag law. And this is a law that allows a person, a family member or a member of law enforcement, to petition the courts to temporarily remove firearms from someone who poses a threat to themselves or others. This is an incredibly important tool that we have here in Illinois, and it is vastly underutilized. So Illinois last year in April had only done less than 60 petitions, orders of this kind in over 2 years. And a state like Maryland that had passed their version of a red flag law was doing 75 per month. Maryland was doing 75 per month, and we had done less than 60 in 2 years. So I passed a bill, which was signed into law by the governor, to instruct the Illinois Department of Public Health to conduct a public awareness and education campaign around the Firearms Restraining Order. So people would know that it's out there as a tool and a resource and would utilize it more. And Skokie could certainly as well, promote the Firearms Restraining Order education in our village. The bill that I passed also instructed yearly training on the FRO for law enforcement. Skokie could instruct its officers to have more training on this, and I know you have a great team of social workers in the police department, and you could also instruct them to recommend this when needed. I think those are all wonderful suggestions. And you can encourage our police chief to express support for an assault weapons ban on large capacity magazines, and microstamping of firearms to the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, because as those of us at the state level who are advocating for these, work with stakeholders, certainly the IACP is an important stakeholder, as is the Illinois State Police. So I'll just say that, one other recommendation, that at the local level, I know we would like to see, I know other municipalities have taken this and executed gun buybacks. This is something that local municipalities can do. Certainly, we would encourage it in a time like this. And I look forward to continuing to collaborate with our local government on this incredibly critical issue. People often focus on the national level and say, well, we need this nationally, and absolutely we do. But local and state government often impacts people's everyday lives much more than people realize. And so your role, our role, is really to work together and collaborate and make things happen. So I look forward to your continued collaboration, and thank you for all of your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Lauren Grodnicki, and I had some comments prepared this evening, but my heart's just not in them after the discussion here. I just wanted to say I was going to tack on what I'm about to say to the comments I was going to make, which is when you guys approved the green alleys, I commend that decision, and I hope you expand that initiative. And I also want to refer you to my comments last time about why I think it's a terrible idea to put sustainability initiatives on the ballot, whether they're binding or not. So please keep that in mind for next time when you discuss the ballot referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Would anybody else like to address the board?
Hi, my name is Sassy Ayala Bland. I've lived in Skokie for about 23 years. I have 3 boys. So just to touch a little bit about what everyone else says, I think that we can do a lot more also with mental health issues. We already have kind of like a MO on some of these shooters. They're between the age of 14 and 22. They're white males. They've had difficult socializing. So I think that there could be a lot more done in school, trying to prevent it. This isn't just about guns. It's about the games they're playing, the violent, very violent games they're playing. It's about the way people are treated in schools. You know, they're isolated. Maybe there needs to be a program in schools. If somebody sees a child that eats alone, walks alone, there should be teachers or even other students should be encouraged to go to a teacher and say, hey, how can I, just warn them, and then maybe there should be a program where they bring them in, surround them, engage them. I believe every human being can be engaged. It's just the way you approach it. So I think that's an extremely important factor that we're missing here. I think everybody knows someone that has issues. Growing up, whether it definitely is broader than just guns and laws, and I think this is a topic that we can all collaborate together. We shouldn't polarize it. It should all be, we all want our children to grow up in a society where they don't have to be afraid. So I think there has to be a lot more done about that. I think our children should be taught to try and reach out to that person who is walking alone, who is eating alone, who is outcasted, and try to engage. That's it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Would anybody else like to address the board before we adjourn? That, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, especially on this day after what we've all lived through. Thank you for coming. Thank you for speaking. And Trustee Sutker, entertain a motion.
I just want to make a comment that on July 18th, we're changing our time of the meetings. And I want to make sure that people know that and remember that it's going to start at 7:30. I'm not sure. It's hard for me. It was hard for me to hear, so I'm not sure if that was announced today.
No, I blew that, so, thank you.
Okay, so I move we adjourn. So on July 18th, the meeting will start at 7:30, and I move we adjourn.
Thank you. This meeting of the Skokie Village Board is hereby adjourned. Thank you all.